If you're a senior and you've been swallowing baking soda straight because someone online said it boosts performance, stop right now. Because used alone, baking soda can do almost nothing for blood flow, and in the wrong dose, it can quietly stress your stomach, your kidneys, and even your blood pressure. The real power only shows up when you combine it correctly, with one specific powder and two simple ingredients that turn it into something your body can actually use. Let's be real for a second. Most challenges men experience after 60, whether it's energy dipping, stamina fading, or performance not feeling as strong, start in one place: blood flow. With age, blood vessels naturally stiffen. The inner lining of the arteries isn't as elastic, and circulation can get slower, especially in the places where strong flow matters most. So the goal isn't a miracle, the goal is simple and science-based: support better circulation safely. And that's where this little kitchen chemistry shift changes everything. On its own, baking soda is basically a basic salt, sodium bicarbonate. It can slightly reduce acidity in the body, and that's why athletes sometimes use it for endurance. But for circulation alone, it's weak, because the body doesn't use straight bicarbonate efficiently for what most seniors are aiming for. It's like pouring gasoline on the ground and expecting a car to move. You've got an ingredient, but not a working engine. So what's the engine? It's what baking soda becomes when mixed correctly. The missing powder: citric acid. Now let's talk about the part almost nobody mentions, yet it is the entire reason this method works in the first place, because the missing powder is not some exotic supplement, it is citric acid, and once you understand what it does, the logic behind this approach becomes crystal clear. Citric acid is the natural acid found in citrus fruits, and it is also available as a simple food-grade powder. But what makes it powerful here is not the fact that it is natural, it is the reaction it creates when it meets baking soda and water. When citric acid combines with sodium bicarbonate, the two neutralize each other, releasing carbon dioxide, which is the fizz you see, and producing sodium citrate, which is the compound your body can actually use as a buffering support. That conversion matters, especially after 60, because baking soda alone is like a tool without a handle, while sodium citrate is the same tool made usable, gentler, and more biologically relevant. Sodium citrate has been studied for decades as an alkalinizing buffer, meaning it helps the body manage excess acidity during exertion, and that internal balance can support stamina and smoother circulation. One strong example comes from a randomized double-blind crossover study published in 2003 in Tartu, Estonia, where well-trained runners took sodium citrate before a 5-kilometer run, and performed significantly better than when they took a placebo, showing that citrate buffering can measurably improve endurance and physiological response under stress. Now here is how you translate that science into a senior-friendly mix, without overdoing it. You are not trying to swallow baking soda raw, and you are not guessing with random spoonfuls, because the body responds to balance, not exaggeration. The ratio that creates the right conversion is 2 parts baking soda to 1 part citric acid, and a simple home measurement for that looks like this: 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda mixed with 1/4 teaspoon of citric acid in a full glass of water, which is around 250 to 300 milliliters. If you prefer to make a small batch ahead of time, you can mix 2 teaspoons of baking soda with 1 teaspoon of citric acid in a dry container, then scoop out 3/4 teaspoon of the blend per serving into water when you want to use it, and that preserves the ratio without forcing you to measure every morning. When you add the powders to water, you let it fizz for about 20 to 30 seconds, you stir gently until the bubbling settles, and what is left is essentially a diluted sodium citrate drink. Timing matters more than people think, not because this is a stimulant, but because buffering support works best when circulation is about to be used. Most seniors do best taking it in the morning, or about 60 to 90 minutes before a walk, light workout, or intimate moment, because that gives the body time to absorb the citrate and shift internal pH slightly toward balance. In sports studies, citrate is commonly taken about 2 hours before exertion, and while you are not training for a 5K, the principle is the same: give your system time to prepare, not time to react. As for what to expect, you want realistic confidence, not fantasy. Some men feel a mild circulation lift, such as warmth in the hands, feet, or lower body, within a few uses, particularly if dehydration or acidity buildup has been a quiet limiter for them, while others need a bit more consistency because their baseline vascular stiffness is higher. A fair expectation is to watch for subtle changes over 1 to 2 weeks of occasional use, such as improved stamina during activity, less early fatigue, and a more reliable response when blood flow is needed most. If nothing changes at all after that window, the issue may be less about buffering and more about underlying vascular health, medication effects, or hydration habits, and that is exactly why you take this as support rather than as a substitute for medical care. I also want you to treat citric acid and sodium citrate with respect, because they are safe for many people in modest amounts, but they still create a sodium load, and seniors are not all built the same. If you have high blood pressure, kidney disease, heart conditions, chronic reflux, or you are on a sodium-restricted plan, you should not experiment casually, because buffering agents can push the body toward alkalosis or fluid shifts when misused. So the headline here is simple: citric acid is the missing piece that finishes baking soda, and that finished form sodium citrate is the reason this method can support stamina and circulation more intelligently than soda alone ever could. And in a second, I am going to show you the first everyday ingredient that makes this mix feel smoother, safer, and far more effective for seniors, because without it, the conversion works, but the body does not respond as strongly as it can. First ingredient: lemon or lime juice. Now that you understand why citric acid is the missing powder that finishes baking soda, the first everyday ingredient we add is what makes this whole mix feel less like a chemistry experiment, and more like a senior-friendly circulation routine, and that ingredient is fresh lemon or lime juice. This is not here for flavor alone, even though it helps with that too, because lemon and lime bring two things seniors benefit from in a very real way: a natural source of citric acid to reinforce the conversion into sodium citrate, and a dense set of plant compounds that support the inner lining of blood vessels over time. As we age, the vessel walls are not just stiffer, they are also more sensitive to oxidative stress, and citrus polyphenol are one of the simplest food-based ways to support that vascular environment without leaning on harsh stimulants or risky shortcuts. There is strong evidence behind citrus and circulation that goes beyond internet hype. One powerful example comes from a 2011 clinical study carried out in Osaka, Japan, where researchers observed that regular intake of citrus flavonoids improved endothelial function, meaning the blood vessels were better able to relax and widen, which is one of the key biological requirements for reliable blood flow in older adults. The reason that matters here is simple: baking soda and citric acid help create a buffering compound, but lemon or lime juice helps create a friendlier internal environment for vessels to respond to that buffering, so instead of the formula working only on paper, it works more smoothly in the body. Now let's get practical, because guessing is where most people get this wrong. The amount you want is not extreme, it is precise and gentle. For one serving, you add 1 tablespoon of fresh lemon or lime juice, which is about 15 milliliters, into the same glass where your powders have already fizzed and settled. So the full mix looks like this in order: you start with your 1/2 teaspoon baking soda, you add 1/4 teaspoon citric acid, you pour in 250 to 300 milliliters of water, you let it fizz for about 20 to 30 seconds, you stir until it calms down, and then you add the tablespoon of lemon or lime juice, stir again, and drink slowly. This order matters because it allows the main chemical conversion to happen cleanly first, then the citrus juice finishes the drink in a way that is smoother on the stomach and more pleasant to take. When should you take it? The best timing for seniors is still about supporting circulation when it is actually needed, not randomly at night or right after a heavy meal. You want this either in the morning, or about 60 to 90 minutes before physical activity or intimacy, because the buffering effect of sodium citrate and the vascular support from citrus work better when your system is entering activity, not recovering from it. And if you are using it in the morning, pair it with a normal breakfast window rather than on a completely empty stomach, especially if you are sensitive to acids, because seniors often digest more comfortably when the stomach is gently active. As for results, the lemon or lime juice does not act like a sudden switch, and that is a good thing because safe circulation support should feel steady, not aggressive. Some men notice that the drink feels lighter on digestion immediately, and within several uses they start to experience more consistent circulation during activity, such as smoother stamina and less early fatigue. If your baseline vascular health is decent and hydration is solid, you might notice subtle improvements within a few days, but for most seniors the meaningful difference shows up over 1 to 2 weeks, because endothelial response and circulation reliability improve gradually as the body keeps meeting the same supportive conditions. One more thing I want you to keep in mind is that this first ingredient is not about chasing a miracle, it is about giving your blood vessels a better chance to do what they were designed to do. You are reinforcing the conversion, improving the environment inside the vessels, and making the overall blend gentler for senior digestion. That is why, when people skip this step, the chemistry still happens, but the lived result often feels weaker. And in the next part, I will show you the final simple ingredient that quietly determines how well this entire drink absorbs and performs in a senior body, because without it the formula can be right, but the response can still be underwhelming. If you want more medically grounded senior-focused formulas explained like this, without the fluff and without the risk, subscribe now, because the next videos are going to build on this and take your confidence, circulation, and performance to another level the safe way. Second ingredient, water warm or room temperature. The quiet ingredient that decides everything. Now we move into the second ingredient, and I want you to pay attention because this looks almost too ordinary to matter, but in a senior body it determines whether the entire method feels smooth and effective or whether it feels like nothing happened at all, and that ingredient is water, preferably warm or room temperature water. This is not just here to dissolve the powders, it is here to shape how your bloodstream responds, because circulation does not run on wishful thinking, circulation runs on volume, and that volume comes from hydration. After 60, thirst signals weaken in many people, meaning you can be mildly dehydrated without realizing it, and when that happens the blood becomes a little thicker, the vessels have less fluid to move, and any circulation support formula you drink has a harder time creating a noticeable response. So when we include water intentionally, we are not being basic, we are being biologically smart. Let's connect this directly to what you already learned. Baking soda and citric acid react to form sodium citrate, which supports internal buffering and stamina, but sodium citrate still needs to enter the system properly, and water is the delivery road. If the drink is too concentrated, seniors are more likely to experience stomach discomfort or bloating, and if the drink is too small, absorption becomes inconsistent, and the body may not register the support strongly enough to show results. In other words, the powders might be correct, but the response becomes weak, not because the formula fails, but because the vehicle is too small or too harsh. Water fixes that by diluting sodium load, improving stomach tolerance, and allowing the citrate to disperse more evenly into your bloodstream. Here is the amount that works well for most seniors. Use 1 full glass of water, around 250 to 300 milliliters, and if you want the smoothest digestion, make it warm or room temperature instead of ice cold. Warm water is gentler on the stomach lining and supports faster mixing and absorption, while cold water can sometimes tighten the stomach and slow digestion, especially in older adults who already have more sensitive gastrointestinal rhythms. So the method remains the same. You add 1/2 teaspoon baking soda and 1/4 teaspoon citric acid into the glass, pour in your water, allow the fizz to rise and settle for about 20 to 30 seconds, stir lightly, then add your tablespoon of citrus juice, stir again, and drink slowly. The water is not an afterthought, it is part of the formula, because it makes the reaction safer, more absorbable, and more senior-friendly. Now let's talk timing, because water also controls when you should take this. You want to use the drink in the morning, or 60 to 90 minutes before physical activity or intimacy, and then keep your hydration steady through the day. That second part matters because the drink can support buffering and circulation, but if you take it while dehydrated and then stay dehydrated, your blood volume drops again and the benefit fades quickly. Think of it like watering a plant once and then leaving it in the sun all week, because you may see a brief lift, but you do not sustain the conditions that allow growth. What you want instead is a body that stays lightly and consistently hydrated, so vessels remain elastic, flow remains smooth, and the buffering support has the right environment to show up when it matters. When should you expect results from the water part of the formula? Here is the good news: hydration can create a noticeable difference faster than most people expect. Some seniors feel circulation warmth or improved stamina within the first few uses simply because they were unintentionally running on low fluid, and once blood volume rises, the system becomes more responsive. Others will notice the more meaningful layer over 1 to 2 weeks, especially if they make hydration a consistent habit rather than a once-a-day event. This is not a placebo effect, this is basic physiology, because blood cannot move freely in vessels that are running on a thinner supply of fluid than they need. I also want to make a quick safety note here that protects you without scaring you, because the goal is strength with wisdom. Do not use tiny water amounts to make it stronger, and do not chug multiple servings back to back, because buffering agents still carry sodium, and seniors need moderation more than intensity. If you have hypertension, kidney concerns, heart conditions, or you are on fluid or sodium restrictions, treat hydration changes and buffering routines carefully and only with medical approval, because what is helpful for one person can be risky for another depending on their health profile. Smart use is what keeps this supportive, not reckless. So this second ingredient may look simple, But it is the difference between a formula that stays trapped in a glass and a formula that actually works inside your body. Water makes the reaction safer, makes absorption smoother, strengthens blood volume, and gives your vessels the fluid foundation they need to respond to the buffering support you are creating. And when all three pieces are working together, the goal is not a dramatic overnight transformation. The goal is a steady return of circulation confidence that feels natural, reliable, and safe for your age. If you found this breakdown useful and you want more senior-focused medically grounded solutions explained clearly without hype, make sure to like this video, share it with someone who needs it, turn on notifications, and subscribe, because the next videos will build on this and help you stay strong, confident, and informed the smart way.